The galaxy was a cold place, full of silent stars and old wars. Many species lived across countless worlds, but most of them feared the same name, the Kharin Empire. They were tall, metallic-skinned aliens with harsh voices and warlike culture. They believed strength was the only truth, and weakness deserved only chains. For many decades, the Kharin conquered world after world. Some surrendered with tears. Some resisted and were burned. Others simply vanished under the shadow of their warships. So when they finally reached the small blue planet called Earth, most aliens believed humanity would fall in days. It was logical. It was expected. The Kharin never lost, and humans had never faced something so powerful. But humans were strange. They were loud and emotional. They cried easily, laughed quickly, and fought desperately. They loved deeply, hated fiercely, and dreamed wildly. They were small creatures compared to giants like Kharin warriors, but there was something in them that refused to break. Among the billions of humans who prepared for war was a young man named Evan Cooper. He was 24, with brown hair, tired eyes, and a quiet nature. He never saw himself as a hero. He never wanted glory or medals. He joined the military simply because he wanted to protect his family. His father was sick, his mother was fragile, and his little sister was still in school. He did not want them to live under alien rule, so he signed his name and wore the uniform. When the war started, cities trembled under fire. Skies turned red. People ran to underground shelters. There were screams in the streets and burning machines on highways. The Kharin expected humanity to surrender quickly. Instead, they witnessed something they did not understand. Humans fought with everything they had. Not only soldiers, but civilians, engineers, doctors, old men, young women, everyone built defenses, shared food, and held their ground together. They were afraid, but they refused to bow. Evan's first deployment was in the ruins of London. The city was half destroyed by plasma bombs, and the river was filled with smoke. The air smelled of dust, and silent ash fell like snow. Evan and his squad moved between broken buildings, listening to distant explosions. He remembered being terrified. His hands shook while he held his rifle, and his heart slammed against his ribs. He did not want to die. He did not want to be brave. But he kept walking because stopping meant letting others die in his place. On his third night in London, Evan saved a young alien child from being crushed by rubble. The Kharin used other species as slaves, and that child had been trapped in the debris. Evan dug with bloody hands, ignoring the dust burning his lungs. When he pulled the crying child free, his commander yelled at him for wasting time. But Evan did not care. He handed the child water and told him to run when it was safe. That moment changed nothing in the war, but it changed something inside him. He realized that mercy and strength could exist together. As the months passed, humans pushed the Kharin back little by little. They built new weapons using their clever engineers. They sent messages of hope through underground radios. Songs and stories went from bunker to bunker, reminding everyone that they were still alive, still together. Evan fought in France and China, in frozen Canada. He saw friends fall and new recruits rise. He saw fear, courage, sorrow, and fire. The Kharin were confused. They could defeat armies, but they could not crush human spirit. They did not understand how a small species could fight with such stubbornness. Their leaders shouted that humans were dishonorable for refusing to kneel. But humans did not see themselves as dishonored. They saw themselves as free. After 3 long years, the war finally turned. Humanity launched a risky counterattack into space. It was insane, but humans liked doing the impossible. Their ships were loud, ugly, and full of patched metal, but they flew. Evan joined the invasion force even though he was exhausted. He told himself he would come home after the war. He would fix the roof, take care of his family, and sleep for days. That dream kept him moving. By the end of the third year, the impossible happened. The Korean Empire fell. Their generals surrendered. Their fleets broke apart. Their empire knelt, not because humanity was stronger, but because humanity refused to die. They had faced the darkness and did not look away, and that was the beginning of a story the galaxy never forgot. After the war, humanity did not celebrate with grand parades. They did not feel like heroes. Most were too tired, too broken, too haunted by the screams and the fire. Streets were full of rubble, hospitals were overflowing, and families were missing loved ones. Yet, amid the destruction, humanity stood taller than ever. They had survived. Against all odds, they had defeated the Korean Empire. Evan Cooper was sent on a mission he did not fully understand. The Korean had surrendered, and now they offered gifts of honor to the humans who had led the fight. No one had asked for gifts. No one wanted them. But the alien elders insisted. They said it was tradition, a reward to honor courage and strength. For most humans, gold or ships would have been enough. But for Evan, this was strange, uncomfortable. He had walked into the Korean throne world, a city of towers that seemed to pierce the sky. The walls shimmered like living metal, and the streets were eerily silent. No children ran through them, no markets buzzed. Only the whispers of the defeated echoed through the streets. And then, at the heart of the city, he found himself in a massive hall, taller than any building he had ever seen. Blue fire burned in great braziers along the walls. Shadows moved like silent ghosts. The floor was polished so smooth that he could see his own reflection. Evan stopped in the center of the hall. He had been told someone would meet him, but he was unprepared for what he saw. Two young alien girls stood before him. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. One had skin like molten silver, hair that flowed like liquid night, and quiet blue eyes that seemed sad and thoughtful. The other had deep green skin, amber eyes that sparkled with fire, and a posture so proud it made her look untouchable. Both were beautiful. Both were silent. Both watched him, waiting. A Korean elder, tall and robed in black with silver markings, stepped forward. His voice was deep, musical, yet sharp. You fought with courage. You honored life even in battle. So you shall receive a gift of the highest value. He gestured to the girls. You will choose one. She will serve you, protect you, and carry your legacy. This is our tradition. Choose wisely. Evan's heart froze. His mouth went dry. His mind screamed. Choose one? Choose one of them? He had fought for freedom, for mercy, for life, and now he was being asked to pick. He swallowed, trying to make sense of the moment. These girls were not prizes. They were people. Real, living people with hearts, thoughts, and dreams. And now he was supposed to claim one as his reward. He stepped closer, looking at them. The silver-skinned girl's gaze was shy. Her hands clutched the edge of her robe, and her lips trembled. The green-skinned girl's eyes were sharp and proud, but even she looked uncertain. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them moved. They had been trained to obey, and now the human was asked to take what they could not refuse. The thought made Evan's chest ache. He wanted to speak, but the elder's gaze pinned him in place. You may choose now, he said. Do not delay. Evan closed his eyes. He thought of the streets of London, of the children he saved, of the soldiers who had fallen beside him. He thought of the humans who refused to give up, even when everything was lost. He had fought so that no one would be forced to kneel, and now the Karen were asking him to force someone's life into a choice that belonged to no one. He opened his eyes again and stepped back. I cannot, he said, voice shaking. These girls, they are not objects. They are people. I cannot choose one as if they belong to me. That is wrong. The hall fell silent. The Corinne elders exchanged whispers. Some looked angry. Some looked shocked. In their culture, this was the highest honor. To refuse it was nearly unthinkable. One elder's brows furrowed. "You refuse the reward?" he asked. "This is a gift, honor, glory." Evan shook his head. "Not if it means taking someone's freedom. I will not be part of that." The silver-skinned girl's eyes widened. She blinked quickly, then looked down. The green-skinned girl's lips pressed into a thin line, her amber eyes burning with conflict. They had been raised to accept this. They had been trained to serve. But Evan's words somehow gave them hope. Hope they had never dared to feel. The Corinne elders murmured angrily. "You dishonor the gift. You dishonor tradition," one said, but Evan stood firm. He did not flinch. He did not turn away. In that moment, the human stubborn courage was reflected in him. Not for himself, but for the ones who could not fight for themselves. And the girls. They understood somehow that he was not like the others. He did not see them as trophies. He saw them as humans with equal, free, deserving of choice. Evan's heart beat fast. He did not know what would come next. He only knew one thing. He could not betray what he had fought for. Not now. Not ever. The hall was silent for a long moment after Evan's refusal. The elders' whispers were like a storm rolling in the distance. He could feel their judgment pressing down on him, cold and sharp. But he did not move. He did not step back. His eyes stayed on the two girls standing before him, and he saw something in their expressions he had not expected. Fear, confusion, hope, it was all tangled together, fragile like glass. The silver-skinned girl's blue eyes shone with quiet wonder. She looked at him like he was a strange light in the darkness. She did not speak, but her small hands trembled at her sides. The green-skinned girl held her head high, lips pressed together, her pride evident even as her shoulders tensed. She was ready to follow the rules, to obey, yet she hesitated. Both girls seemed to silently ask him a question he did not yet understand. The Corinne elder cleared his throat. "You are a human," he said slowly, his voice echoing through the hall. "You have fought our armies and defeated them. You are offered a gift of great honor. Yet you refuse. Explain yourself." Evan swallowed hard, his throat dry. His heart beat like a drum. He thought of the children he had saved in burning cities, of the families who had clung to hope while bombs fell around them, of the countless soldiers who had died believing in humanity. He thought of the freedom he had fought for, not only for humans, but for all who suffered under the Corinne. And now, in this silent hall, he realized what this moment meant. These girls. He began, his voice trembling but growing stronger with each word. They are not rewards. They are not prizes. They are not property. They are people. They have families. They have lives. They deserve to choose their own paths, not to be given to someone because of tradition. I cannot do that. The hall went completely still. Not a sound, not even a whisper. The elders looked at each other in disbelief. The proud girl's amber eyes softened just a fraction, but the fear in the silver-skinned girl's gaze grew. She had been trained to obey. She had never been allowed to hope. The green-skinned girl finally spoke, her voice firm yet quiet. "If you refuse, human, will it shame us? Will our families be punished?" Her words were almost a whisper, but they carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken rules. Evan could see the conflict in her eyes. She was proud and brave, but she had been raised in a world that demanded obedience above all. The silver-skinned girl's hands curled into small fists. I just don't want anyone I care about to suffer," she murmured. Her voice shook. She looked small, fragile, and terrified. Evan's heart ached. He could see how trapped they were, how little choice they had been given. The thought of forcing them into one decision he did not make for himself made his chest burn with anger and sorrow. He turned to the elders. "There must be another way," he said. "A way where neither of them is forced to be a gift. A way where they are not used to honor your tradition. If you truly value courage and mercy, then you will see that taking someone's life freedom is not honorable. It is cruel." The elders whispered among themselves again, their expressions a mixture of shock and confusion. One elder stepped forward, voice sharper this time. "This is how our people honor victory. There is no other way. You must choose one. You have no option." Evan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. He looked at the two girls once more. He saw fear, pride, and something fragile hope. He saw the human in them, the part of them that deserved to breathe freely, to walk under the stars without chains. His voice shook with emotion as he spoke, but he would not look away. "I cannot," he said firmly. "I will not be part of taking someone's life freedom. I fought so no one would be forced to kneel, and I will not betray that now. You can call me dishonorable, you can punish me, you can do anything, but I will not hurt them. Not one, not ever." The hall was quiet, but the energy had shifted. The girls looked at him differently now. The proud girl's amber eyes softened. The blue-eyed girl blinked back tears. For the first time in their lives, someone had stood between them and the rules of the world they had never dared to defy. And in that moment, Evan realized something about humans and maybe about himself. Courage was not just in fighting battles. Courage was in protecting the weak, in refusing to bow, in refusing to use power for harm. That was the heart of humanity. That was the reason they had survived the war. The elders exchanged long, uneasy glances. Something in their culture, long believed unbreakable, had been challenged. And for the first time, they did not know what to do next. Evan took a deep breath. He did not know how this would end. He did not know if the elders would allow mercy, or if the Korean traditions would crush him. But he knew one thing with certainty: he would not choose. Not now. Not ever. And in that silence, the galaxy held its breath. The hall seemed heavier now, as if the air itself carried the weight of expectation and fear. The Korean elders whispered among themselves in a language Evan could not understand. Their voices were sharp and low, full of anger and confusion, and the way they looked at him made him feel like the tiniest spark standing against a storm. But Evan did not move. He did not back down. He could feel every beat of his heart, every breath shaking in his chest. Yet he stood firm. The two girls remained in front of him, but the tension between them was different now. The proud girl with amber eyes held her chin high, but her shoulders were tight with anxiety. Her golden hair shimmered slightly under the blue firelight, and though her gaze was steady, Evan could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She was used to being in control, used to following the rules of her world, yet here she was, silent and uncertain. The silver-skinned girl's blue eyes were wide with fear, and she clutched the edge of her robe so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her lips trembled, and she seemed ready to shrink into the ground. But even in her silence, Evan could see a glimmer of hope, something that had been buried under years of obedience. Something fragile and human. Evan's voice broke the tension. "You don't understand," he said quietly, but with strength. "I am not here to claim anyone. I am here because I fought for freedom. I fought so people could live without being used as tools or trophies. I cannot choose between them. They are not rewards. They are human, or at least they deserve to be treated like they are." The elders stopped whispering. They stared at him like he had said something impossible, something unthinkable. One elder, taller than the rest with silver markings on his robe, stepped forward. "You dishonor our tradition," he said slowly. "You dishonor the honor we offer. You risk shame for yourself and for them. If you do not choose, the consequences are yours. Evan's chest tightened, but he did not flinch. He could feel the girl's eyes on him, watching him, waiting. He thought of the thousands of humans who had fought for life against impossible odds, who had refused to surrender even when everything seemed lost. He thought of the children he had saved, the families he had protected, the friends who had fallen beside him. And he realized that courage was not only about facing enemies, it was also about facing injustice. Even when it was dressed as tradition, he turned to the proud girl first. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice gentle but steady. The girl blinked, surprised. She opened her mouth, but no words came at first. Then she said softly, I want to live with honor. Even if it means following rules I do not like, I do not want my family to be hurt." Her voice was firm, but there was a sadness in it that made Evan's chest ache. He looked at the silver-skinned girl next. She hesitated, then whispered, I just don't want anyone I love to be punished. I want to choose, if I can. But I have never been allowed." Tears glimmered in her eyes. Evan felt something break inside him. He realized the cruel truth of the situation. No matter what he did, someone could be hurt. If he chose one, the other would lose. If he refused, the elders might punish them both. And yet, he could not betray his principles. He had fought for humanity, yes, but he had also fought for mercy, for freedom, for life itself. He could not compromise now. Evan straightened his back and raised his head. "I will not choose one over the other," he said firmly. "I will not force them into a life they did not decide. I will protect them both. If that breaks your traditions, then so be it. But this is how humans fight. We do not take freedom away. We fight to preserve it." The elders stared at him. Shock, confusion, and disbelief flickered across their faces. This had never happened. No human had ever refused such a reward. No one had ever defied their customs so openly. The girls looked at him now with something new: respect, wonder, and cautious hope. They had been trained to obey, to follow rules, to be silent. And now a human soldier had stood between them and their oppression. And he had refused to bow to unjust authority, for the first time in the hall's long history. Silence reigned not as fear but as possibility. The Koran were forced to reconsider, to question their own ways. And in that silence, Evan understood something profound. Victory was not only in defeating an empire with weapons. True victory was in showing compassion when it was hardest, in choosing justice over tradition, and in standing firm for what was right. The girl stepped slightly closer to him, a silent bond forming between them. Evan felt a surge of emotion he could not name: relief, pride, and a strange, quiet joy. He had no idea what would happen next. He did not know if the Koran would allow mercy. But one thing was certain: he had chosen what was right. He had chosen humanity. And sometimes that was enough to change the world. The hall remained quiet, but the air was thick with tension. The Koran elders whispered angrily among themselves, pacing in long, slow steps. Their voices were sharp and cold, but Evan did not flinch. He could feel the weight of centuries of tradition pressing on him, but he knew he could not back down. These girls, both of them, were not objects, not trophies, not tools for honor. They were living beings, and he would not betray that truth. The silver-skinned girl shivered slightly, her small hands clutching the edges of her robe. The proud girl's amber eyes burned with restrained emotion, her jaw tight as she tried to maintain control. Evan felt a pang of sorrow for them. He saw how trapped they were, caught between their own training, the expectations of their elders, and the sudden uncertainty he had thrown into their lives. They had no choice in this moment, and that thought made his chest ache. One of the elders, older and taller than the rest, stepped forward, his voice like ice. "You human," he said, "you refuse to honor our gift. If you do not choose, the law says punishment will follow. Their families will be blamed. Your decision affects not only them, but those they love. Are you prepared to face the consequences? Evan's heart pounded. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a mountain. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in slowly. He thought of the cities that had burned, of the soldiers who had died beside him, of the civilians who had risked their lives for each other. He thought of the children he had saved in the rubble, the families he had carried to safety. Every life mattered. Every choice mattered. And here now, one wrong word could shatter futures. He opened his eyes and looked first at the proud girl. Her amber gaze met his, unflinching but curious. "What do you want?" he asked gently. I want to be free," she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "But I cannot disobey my elders. I have been trained my whole life to serve. I do not want to dishonor them, and I do not want my family to suffer." She looked down for a moment, then back at him. "If you must choose, I will obey. But I wish things were different." Evan's chest tightened. He turned to the silver-skinned girl, who looked pale and frightened. "And you?" he asked. I don't want anyone I love to be hurt," she whispered, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "I've never been allowed to choose for myself. I wish I could just walk away, but I cannot. Please, help me." Evan felt a fierce surge of protectiveness. He wanted to shake the elders, scream at them, and tear down their rules with his bare hands. These girls had lived their lives in chains, and now, at the very end of the war, he would not let them be reduced to gifts. His heart beat fast, adrenaline mixing with fear, sorrow, and determination. He stepped closer to the girls. "I will not choose one over the other," he said firmly. "I cannot. You both deserve to live freely. I fought so no one would be forced to kneel. I fought so people could have hope. And I will not betray that now. You will not be trophies. You will not be property. You will not be my reward. You will be free. I will protect you both, but you will decide your own paths." The elders gasped. One of them slammed a hand against a column, silver light flashing on his skin. "Impossible!" he roared. "This has never happened. One human refusing the law? One human daring to deny honor? This is shame. This is chaos." The proud girl blinked, her amber eyes wide. The silver-skinned girl's hands trembled as relief and fear battled within her. Neither of them could speak, but Evan could see the unspoken gratitude, the spark of hope igniting in their hearts. For the first time, someone had stood between them and their oppression. And that person had chosen mercy and justice over tradition. Evan straightened his back, his voice steady despite the storm around him. "I will not obey a rule that is cruel," he said. "You may punish me. You may call me dishonorable. You may try to make me regret this. But I will not harm them. I will not take their freedom. That is the difference between humans and conquerors. We fight to protect, not to control. And that is what true victory looks like." The hall fell into a heavy silence. The Korean elders looked at each other, unsure, shocked, even afraid. The girls stood quietly, their expressions softening. Something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, tradition had been challenged, and mercy had won. Evan felt a strange calm wash over him. The danger was not gone, but the choice had been made. He had stood for what was right. He had chosen humanity over law. And in that choice, he felt the first flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could understand what humans truly were. He looked at the girls once more, and in that moment, they all understood something unspoken. Courage was not measured by the battles one won, but by the lives one chose to protect. And in that hall, humanity shone brighter than any weapon, brighter than any empire, brighter than any star. After Evan's words, the hall remained silent for a long moment. The Corinne elders stepped back, their anger and confusion still heavy in the air, but no one moved to stop him. For the first time in the history of their empire, a human had openly defied tradition and chosen mercy over law. The girls, once frozen in fear, now looked at him with a mix of astonishment and relief. The proud girl, her amber eyes bright, finally spoke. You mean we are free to decide?" Her voice trembled, yet held a note of disbelief. She looked at the silver-skinned girl, whose blue eyes were shining with unshed tears. They both had lived in obedience all their lives, trained to accept any fate without question. Now for the first time, someone had offered them choice. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Evan nodded. "Yes, you both have a choice. I will protect you, but the decision of what comes next is yours. No one will force you to do anything you do not want." His voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of his promise. He had fought for this moment, for freedom, for hope. He would not let it slip away. The silver-skinned girl hesitated, then whispered, I don't know what to do. I've never been allowed to make a choice. I'm afraid." Her small hands twisted nervously at her robe. Evan stepped closer and lowered his voice. "It's okay to be afraid," he said gently. "Freedom is scary at first, but it is worth it. You can take your time. No one will rush you." The proud girl placed a hand lightly on the silver-skinned girl's shoulder. "We can figure it out together," she said. Her voice was firmer now, yet tender. "We are not alone anymore. This human, he is giving us a chance we never had." There was gratitude and something more in her tone, something that hinted at respect and trust. The elders watched in stunned silence. Their traditions, their rules, their centuries of customs, they were being ignored, challenged, and redefined by a human soldier. Some of them looked angry, some confused, some perhaps even afraid. But no one moved forward. The hall was no longer a place of command. It had become a space where the impossible had begun. Evan felt his chest tighten with emotion. He looked at both girls, seeing the fear, the uncertainty, but also the faint glimmers of hope starting to shine through. "You have been trained to obey," he said softly. "But now you can choose. That is your power. That is your freedom. And I will not let anyone take that from you." The silver-skinned girl finally took a deep breath. I want to learn what it is to be free," she said. Her voice was still small, but firm. She lifted her head and looked at Evan. "I want to see the stars without fear. I want to walk and laugh and decide for myself." The proud girl nodded. "And I want to do the same. I've lived my life following rules I never chose. I will not return to that. But I will need guidance. I will need someone I can trust." Her amber eyes met Evan's. "Maybe you can be that person." Evan's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "I will," he said simply. "I don't know what comes next, but I promise I will protect you both. And I will help you learn to live freely. One step at a time." The silver-skinned girl let out a shaky breath and leaned slightly toward him. The proud girl remained poised but allowed herself a tiny smile, a sign that she trusted him too. For the first time in their lives, they did not feel like prisoners, not even under the gaze of the Karen elders. They felt human. The elders murmured among themselves again, but Evan ignored them. He turned his gaze toward the towering city beyond the hall's doors. The war had ended, the empire had fallen, and yet, a new kind of battle had just begun, the battle for freedom, for trust, for life beyond chains. And for the first time, humanity's true strength shone not in weapons or ships, but in compassion, courage, and the refusal to harm others. Evan led the girls out of the hall. Each step they took felt heavy with emotion and possibility. The proud girl walked beside him, her shoulders straight, but her fingers brushing lightly against her robe in nervous anticipation. The silver-skinned girl followed, glancing at him with timid hope. The air outside smelled of strange metals and burning energy, but to them, it felt like the first breath of freedom. And as they stepped into the alien city, together yet free to make their own choices, Evan realized something profound. Humanity did not conquer to control. Humans fought to give others the chance to live, to choose, and to hope. That was their true power. That was what made them unstoppable. For the girls, the stars above had never looked brighter. For Evan, hope had never felt heavier and more beautiful. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, a small,